dudes.
Let's do it. We're rolling.
How fervent their hatreds.
Gilgamesh.
Our posturings.
Methuselah.
Our imagined self-importance. The delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Bigger Picture Podcast. I'm Sean. I'm here with...
I'm Chris.
And we're here to talk about... What is that?
Aliens.
Aliens? Aliens.
Aliens and alien treaties with, particularly, the U.S. government / military.
Yeah, we got pretty good set of slides here. A lot of details to cover.
A lot of
again.
details. Okay, I'll be the one to say this. Specifically with this episode, but honestly all of our episodes, we encourage anyone who is at all interested in the things that we're talking about to do some real research on these topics, because some of them are so broad and there's so many bullet points that you need to know about, that if you just watch these podcasts and go on that information, you're going to be very lost. And if you try to reiterate this information to other people, you're going to look very stupid. So, again, if you're interested,
much
do
like
your
us.
research. Do your research on this, because we're giving you what we can in the short time that we have. On that note, let's get to it.
And I just want to add a little bit to that. And a lot of this stuff, I haven't really researched myself. And you actually brought up a lot of the information to me. And you were like, hey, check this out, check this out, check this out. And then I would come back and be like, oh, I just checked that out. Have you seen this? And you're like, no, what is this? And then it would go back and forth, rapid fire.
Yeah.
It would just start piecing things together. And hopefully, some of it comes across, or enough of it comes across to kind of get you thinking about it.
Even into today, pre-podcast, we were
10 minutes, 10
have you
minutes
heard about
before
this?
the show.
And the other would be like, no, what?
What? Okay.
It's a treat when one of us is like, have you heard of this? And the other's like, yeah, actually. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
It's awesome. But let's just dive right into it, right?
Originally, we wanted to start with Roswell.
Oh my God, yeah.
But what about the nuclear fission and all that stuff? That comes a little before.
Yeah,
Roswell.
And I just want to put a couple of assumptions here while we're talking about this. Have them up on screen right now, and there's a couple things you have to kind of assume as we're talking about this going forward, because if you mention oh, this is bullshit because of this, you have to have a sort of an assumption, and some of the assumptions are that aliens do exist, right? That's first and foremost, that they do exist. Aliens have visited us and have kind of, or when I say us, meaning us as humans, and I would say as governments and higher ups. And then the other assumption is the fact that they actually had communication with us and tried to become, I guess, make a treaty or try to become benevolent with us. And then I guess one other assumption is, could this all be kept secret from the public, which is a huge assumption, because yes and no, and you'll see why.
Probability-wise, absolutely, it could be kept from the public.
Well, let's just go by probability chances anyway, right? Because let's just do straight math. Could there be extraterrestrials out there? Right?
100%.
How many stars are there? A billion,
This is
billion.
the Fermi paradox.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
A billion stars out there. How many? We have 9 planets in our solar system.
Oh, 8 now, dude.
Well, no, we have 9. We don't even know, because we have fucking exoplanets and shit like that. It's crazy. But let's just say we have 9, right? If there's 100 billion stars out there, couldn't it be safe to assume there's pretty close to 900 billion planets out there? And one of those planets might have something. So let's just get that out of the way. Extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
problematically do exist, right?
Fuck probability. Pardon my French. Extraterrestrials exist. It is so unbelievably arrogant and ignorant to think that we are the only species in the entire universe. Moving forward.
Okay. The fact that we have had contact with them, I'm sure that's happened. You can go through, just type in UFO sightings into Google. First page that'll come up is Wikipedia usually, and you'll see it goes all the way back to BC, where people were talking about visitations of something from the sky.
Oh, totally. There's pictures and a lot of scripts and texts that
cave
like,
paintings and shit like that.
Yeah,
and
it's like,
rock
that's a
carvings.
UFO.
Right. So like we're not putting it out there saying like oh, you know, this is all fictional and things like that. Like it's out there. You could see it. Just go look at it real quick to make these assumptions as real as possible. The other assumption is that the aliens have contact with the U.S. government and try to make a treaty. We are going to explain that in detail today. And then the other assumption is, could this be kept secret from the public? And I would say that is a 50-50, right? Because there are people that do know, and the general public does not know. But I bet you if you were to poll 100 people and you say, do you think aliens exist? They'd probably, 99 out of 100 would probably say yes, right? Well, depends on where you go, right? If you go to a church, they'd probably say no. But if you're out like in a market square or whatever, they'll probably, let's say like the 9 out of 100, the probability factor. And then if you say, have we had contact with them? What do you think the probability on that would be? Like, where would your guess be on something like that?
Percentage-wise?
Yeah.
I'd say probably, I would hope, actually, that's optimistic. More realistically, I was going to say 20% of people would.
Really? I think it would be much higher.
That would say we've had contact with them?
I think it would be
Really?
much higher.
I don't know, man. I mean, and maybe this is the other side of the scale, me being pessimistic, but like, there's a lot of stupid people.
Yeah, that is true.
Very
There are a lot of
stupid.
dumb people out there, and
And
well, I think with the whole movie industry and the internet and things like that, I think it's become more mainstream. Like maybe not as if have we come face to face with them like first contact, but
Right.
maybe signals or
Communicated.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe in
well,
that sense.
I'm glad you brought up the mainstream media and movies and stuff, because when it's one of the assumption is like, could they be hidden from, the population? I think that the act of hiding something is a lot different on that scale than just like not letting people see it. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's like,
Kind of hide it in plain sight.
yeah,
You
hide
make-
it in plain
make fun
sight.
of it
Yeah,
and-
tell them that there's no way you really saw that, and make them think that if you see something in the sky, oh, you must have just been seeing things. Like
What's the one with Will Smith, the alien movie?
Independence Day.
No, well, yeah, that one, but
It's like no Independence Day.
no, the one where they're like keeping it secret and they have the thing they hold up and they flash your memory.
Oh, Men in Black.
Men in Black, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone was like, oh, this is hilarious, aliens and these guys going around making it keep secret and stuff like that. Well, like, just a few years later, like, people finding out about the NSA and how they would spy on all the Americans, right? So, yeah, why not?
Oh, I mean, dude, I think that ideas in movies or shows or books or ideas in general, they come from a place,
Yeah, reality, like...
Yeah, well, yeah, or something sparks that idea or synapse or whatever. Because it's like, dude, no one was just like, fire. You know what I mean? No, nobody did that. No one was just like, flying. Nope. No. Like, they saw something sparked the thought for that to be a thing. And now, like, Men in Black, what would make the producer, director, writer of that movie want to put that in there? Like, why erase, like, with the beep, erase the memories? Where'd you get that idea? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, I apologize if I sound crazy, but it's like, I'm serious. Ideas come from a place. People don't...
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's probably been written for a while, but, like, that storyline before Men in Black.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But, again...
Because Men in Black is a little bit of, like,
back.
Blues Brothers mixed in with a little bit of, some kind of a sci-fi.
And that's kind of one
And
of the things
Hollywood.
that bummed me out about that movie, is there was a comical aspect to that.
Well, that's what I was saying.
And I think that was intentional.
If you make it funny and you make it light and you make it fun, people are like, oh, that's just, it's silly talk that there could be an organization
stuff,
out there.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Exactly.
movie stuff.
And that's hiding it.
You watch too many movies. That's what people reply to you.
Yeah, there's probably people watching this podcast right now going, "You watch too many movies."
Yeah, sure they have. Yeah.
And you're one of those people.
And the funny thing is, I'm not a movie guy. Like people like ask me.
I like movies.
Like, have you seen this movie or something? I'm like, nah, I'll catch it on Blu-ray. Like, really?
Yep.
No, you got to go watch it in theaters.
Black
Man.
Panther. Everyone's
I
like,
still haven't seen it
dude, it's
yet.
one of the best Marvel movies ever. Like, it grossed all this money. I waited until it was on Netflix.
I still
Then
haven't
I
seen it,
watched
to be honest with you.
I think it's on Netflix now.
Is it? Man,
It was
maybe
cool.
I'll watch it. Maybe I
It was
won't.
cool.
But let's
Yeah,
get
moving
back
on.
to this. Let's just go right to the slideshow here. You mentioned before about how we're going to go back a little bit before First
Yes.
Contact and kind of before the whole treaty thing started, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how the timeline kind of moves in a sense. So, like Chris and I were talking about this. This is kind of what we were talking about 30 minutes before we started the podcast. We kind of wanted to. We didn't know where to start, right? We didn't know if we wanted to start directly at the treaty or leading up to the treaty. And I think you and I kind of pieced together that the nuclear age kind of set this whole thing off, right?
Right. It was a catalyst for this. I'm just gonna say our like alien endeavor, quote unquote. Like, so in 1938 is the discovery of nuclear fission, or theorized.
Yeah. Discovery of
the
it.
math is starting to be again theorized. Not done yet.
Yeah, and then within like 2 years, they figured out that, oh crap, this could be made into a weapon.
Into a weapon, exactly. Of course, because everything turns into a weapon.
So you had a nice theory here about the Germans, right? Because like most of these guys that we're going to be talking about are German scientists, and for whatever reason, why are they so far ahead? I don't know, but you kind of mentioned like
Why
something
were the
about
Germans
that.
so far
Yeah.
ahead? I mentioned a few things, so I don't know which one you're thinking of right in this moment. So just start me off, and I'll roll with it.
Well, you mentioned that like something about like Hitler, right? Hitler had some type of connection to something where he had the foresight to begin research on it, right?
Well,
Or
I didn't actually mention this to you, but I'm glad you brought this up. Is because before Roswell, and I think if you look this up, it's fact. It was either before Roswell or like right after. There was also a flying disc crash in Germany, in the woods somewhere in Germany, that was quickly recovered by the German government. And it had to be before. Yeah. It had to be before. No, I think it was. And I didn't do a ton of research in this because we live in America. And
right, and then I was going to say,
that's
that's a bit of a problem. When you're trying to find something from a different country, from a different era, like meaning pre-internet, pre-computer age, it's hard to find real facts. Like newspapers and things like that are probably the only thing you can go by, but this is also during the height of like war, where everything was propaganda and you had no idea what was real. So trying to find anything like this is terrible, and a lot of it is hearsay. But it kind of makes sense because of the fact that, like, it's kind of like you said, something had to inspire you to create something, right? So I don't know if the German Nazi Party was trying to develop a bomb using nuclear fission, and so set forth the German scientists in that path or into that direction, or was it more or less the discovery of fission with the Nazi Party kind of coming in and saying, hey, this could be possibly used as weaponry, let's take hold of this and try to develop and build upon that.
Okay. All right, so I needed to look this up. 1936 alleged crash in UFO in Germany. So that's before Roswell.
That's even before Otto Hahn's discovery of fission.
So 36, World War II started when? 43? Or 44?
It depends for who you're talking about.
Yeah, that's fair. Around there.
We entered the war late. America entered the war late.
Then you have all the stories about the Foo Fighters and the crazy technology that would, if it hit one of the planes, would just shut off all the electricity and just nosedive.
Yeah, and this is something we were talking about too. Is like, think about I mentioned to you, is like, think about how people were living back then, like how their lives were and then all of a sudden World War II breaks out, and then technologically we made an enormous jump, right? There were still people out there, like, we developed cars, yeah, we were pretty well off with engines, we had all that. Aeronautics was still pretty early on, like,
Yeah.
It wasn't until the 1930s when Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic, right? So we had planes that were sort of semi-capable, so we started kind of developing, being able to use forces, meaning outside of natural forces, like a horse-drawn carriage, right? We were able to develop our own means of transportation. But it wasn't until like World War One is really what kind of propelled that, and then right around like like you said, 1936, somewhere around that time, you start getting fission, nuclear fission. You start getting people playing around with particles. You got Einstein's his theory of relativity was groundbreaking. So like all these things happen around that time, and it's very weird that you get these like spikes of like I don't even know, like spikes of information or spikes of something.
But, so 36, UFO crash, World War II, Germans have all this crazy technology. They know they're going to lose the war. U.S. comes in, takes all the scientists, physicists, etc., that were part of the Nazi regime, and they essentially say, all right, listen, you can either come with us and work for us because you guys are smart as hell, or we kill you. Kind of a no-brainer. All right, we're going to work for the Americans now.
Yeah, pretty much no-brainer. And then that would bring us right to the Manhattan Project, where
Good stuff.
this is just something like exactly what Chris said. Like, we essentially captured a bunch of scientists because obviously they're assets, right? Because you gain information, instant information on what the Nazis are doing, what your enemy is doing, and you essentially take that person that has that knowledge and that capability and have them develop under your regime, right? So it's a smart thing to do. It's kind of weird, and the Manhattan Project was essentially just that: was to develop a nuclear bomb, right? To use nuclear fission to create something that is so devastating that you can essentially effectively end a war at will, and they did that. They achieved it.
That, yep.
And Oppenheimer's famous quote, "Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds," and it's so true. It's one of those things that, in that moment,
creepy.
once it was completed and finished, that was it. There was no going back, right?
Yep.
Pandora's box is open, and this is it.
Yep.
In the first test, the Trinity test, 1945. This is over in
New Mexico?
I think it was New Mexico, right? Yeah, New Mexico. I don't know how to say that. Socorro, New Mexico. The first nuclear test, obviously successful. And then following events rolled into, dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which is effectively kind of what they were looking for to end the war at will. So just to kind of put it in the timeline of what might have sparked this whole treaty between the Homo sapiens and, I guess, what do you want to call them? Aliens, ETs, extraterrestrials, aliens. We're gonna go with aliens. All right. So this might be the thing that kind of sparked the aliens to kind of take notice of us, right?
Yeah, I if we're gonna play with this theory, then I would say that would probably draw the attention of a superior race that probably is monitoring your planet. It's like, whoa, what the fuck was that?
It's kind of like they always kind of say like how setting off like a nuclear bomb is like equivalent to kind of like a small star, right?
Yeah.
Like they always kind of that's how like people kind of describe it. Like I wonder how far you could see it or like see whatever happened or measure
with whatever instruments.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's something like you said, like if there's not a space police, but maybe just somebody cruising by and all of a sudden, boom, bomb goes off and like, hey, something weird activity is going on in this sector of the universe.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you think about it, if we were that race and we were flying by somewhere,
we would want to know,
and that happened, we'd be like, all right, we're going. No,
yeah.
We need to know what that was.
We want to know because it's. I guess this is the start of everything, right? Because with nuclear power, you're starting to harness energy of stars.
Yeah, and let's take a second to really think about, okay, so the Trinity test, 1945, nuke goes off. Let's go 24 years later, we're flying to the moon. We're flying through space, through the atmosphere, and going to the moon. 69.
Yeah, that's always been fucking
in
amazing.
just
like, I don't know,
20 some odd years, we go from having planes that like just within the past couple decades were able to fly over oceans to flying through the fucking atmosphere.
Actually,
to the moon.
when was Lindbergh's flight? Because that was kind of like the first major, like, I guess, feat in aeronautics was to travel. Because when you travel over the ocean, you have no place to land. So like that was the first one to kind of say, yeah, we can actually have planes and go long distances. Because I think that would be kind of a major point for war as well. Because then now you can transport your troops and your army around the world a lot quicker, especially with a plane, because you can just load up a plane, fly across an ocean, drop them off, right? So you can mobilize a lot quicker.
Regardless, technology boomed, like freaking boomed.
Yeah, something was an igniter here.
And I mean, think about like when electricity was discovered, or like the light bulb was invented.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It wasn't even that long ago. And then like 100 years later, we're flying through space. I mean,
it's like you said, yeah. It's like you say, only 30 years before we went to space, we barely flew across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And now we're flying out of the planet.
And conveniently, in between 45, or Earth, nuclear fission theorized as 38. 45, 45, 47 is when Roswell happens.
Mm-hmm.
38 is the German Roswell, we'll call it.
36. 1936 crash.
Oh, yeah, I was looking at a different date. Whoops, my fault. Yep, 36. So, and then after that, that's when, like, dude, technology has just skyrocketed since then.
Right, and it really makes you wonder if the recovered technology from these spacecrafts,
or if we are in these treaties, which we haven't really gotten to yet.
Not yet.
But
you also got to think about it too. So why would this be the first time we've ever got a hold of the technology? Well, Germany was at war. I'm sure they always had guns pointed at the sky, and maybe it wasn't a crash. Maybe they shot it down. Right?
Possibly.
Now we have planes, so now we're also up in the atmosphere, where they would be essentially every time before would have been above us. So we would also have an ability to potentially knock it down out of the sky, or it could have crashed into us.
The only thing with me with all these crashes is that, like, if these aliens are flying through, like, intergalactically or interstellar, stellarly, like through space and stuff, like,
yeah, they're not gonna crash.
Yeah, like, you're just gonna crash, like, oh shit, forgot to refuel, like, no. Oh, didn't get an oil change or some shit, like...
Yeah, but what if there was, like,
I mean, my mind goes that it's like, maybe they crashed intentionally. Like...
That's kind of what I thought, too.
To make us think that they haven't always been watching.
Or maybe it wasn't a crash, maybe it was a landing, and then when they're trying to make contact with us or whatever, we start fucking attacking them, and they're like, oh shit, we just blow them up, right?
Yeah, and then we say it crashed.
Yeah, because of all the fucking explosions around, you can say it crashed.
Little do we know we were fucking shooting at them.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't, yeah. But there's probably been, because like I said, if you look back of all the UFO sightings in Wikipedia, it goes back to like BC, right? And they've always kind of been flying around. There's always been documentation of this, but there's never been a reported, and especially from a government agency, there's never been a reported crash or recovery of their technology. And that, I guess, that is the difference maker, right? Because like you said, at 36, the Germans got a hold of it. All of a sudden, Germany is miles ahead of U.S. scientists or any other nation in the world, until we start going in just by brute force and literally recovering their technology to make our own. And then all of a sudden, we win the war. We're still not at peace. It's not peacetime at that particular time. But then 1947 Roswell happens, right? And then, like you said,
all of a sudden we have that recovered.
Yeah, and then within almost 22 years, we're on the moon. 22. That's pretty amazing. 22 years, if you really think about it. 22 years we left the Earth and went on the moon. Because like Sputnik was 54, 55, somewhere around there.
Yeah, your guess is better.
So that's just shooting an object up into space, which I would say, okay, let's call that the genesis of space travel, of any object or any foreign object or any domestic object into space, I should say. But from like 1954-ish, whatever, that's still 15 years until we're on the moon, which is incredible. Because I would figure, with all the space travel, the amount of things that we can do in the meantime, like how we not got to Mars yet, or are we there?
That's a whole other can of worms.
But anyway,
let's push forward here.
Roswell. So obviously Roswell happened in 1947. So we're still trying to go through the timeline here, and then now we're finally going to get to the stuff about the contact, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously everyone knows about Roswell. It's the most famous kind of crash landing UFO type story out there. And depending on what story you hear, either they recovered bodies and they didn't. There's up to 4 bodies. I think they said they recovered. 2 were alive, 2 were dead, or 2 were like critically injured and 2 were dead at one point. And I think eventually they either probably killed them or they died in the lab or whatever. But they never made it out. So depending on who you're talking about, but eventually it kind of got out there. Word spread. It got really wide notice that there are UFOs, and yes, there are beings out there that they recovered, and yes, aliens exist, right? Obviously, once that kind of happened, you're going to have mass panic around the nation. You can't run a government if there's anarchy. So the government had to take action, and they had to do something. They had to do something because something significant was about to change. And those somethings are exactly what Truman did. And, 1947, 2 months after the Roswell incident happened, they started doing this National Security Act, where it passed an order to hide the activities of the government. So think about that. 2 months after Roswell happened, they had to put an act in to essentially work undercover to their own citizens.
Yeah.
So to me, that kind of sounds like, hey, we recovered some technology. Holy crap.
We discovered something crazy.
Yeah, holy crap, we can't let this out.
Yeah.
Right? 1947, also the CIA mind control projects began. Which is very interesting because why would you all of a sudden start thinking psychically, right? Kind of thinking outside the body. It's kind of a strange concept for a government to take hold of. Moving on, the 1952, they actually installed a agency, the NSA, the National Security Agency, to actually monitor and decipher alien communications. So, does that alien communications mean foreign communications, like they needed Spanish translators to intercept or things like that? Or does that mean interstellar? We don't know. But that is essentially what it was for. 1953, astronomers made a rather disturbing discovery of a large object that entered the solar system, which later proved to be an object that was intelligently guided and emitted communication signals. So this is 1953. So if you would install an agency in 1952 to essentially put out and receive communications, and then a year later you get something coming back at you, it's a result. What was that result? Project Plato. So Project Plato was established to kind of create some type of diplomatic relations with alien species. And that was in 1953. 1953, yes. And then they were successful because contact was made in 1953 with the race that was known as the the Big Nose Greys, the Big Nose Greys. And the meeting was arranged at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico in 1954. So this is kind of where everything starts.
Yeah, this is where it starts getting crazy.
Yeah. So, 1954, so exactly February 20th, 1954, Eisenhower established his first contact. So this is a very controversial kind of topic. This is one that it's hard to gauge who's telling the truth, who isn't telling the truth, but when you start looking at certain things, the truth kind of begins to show itself. So on February 20th, he ended up taking a second vacation only 2 weeks after his kind of annual vacation that he goes and does quail shooting in Georgia. So kind of an unexpected vacation. Like, hey, why not? Let's go on vacation. While he was on vacation in Palm Springs, all of a sudden he goes missing. Not accounted for. Nobody knows where he is. And the cover-up story... The president of the United States, yeah, Eisenhower is now the president of the United States at this point in time, is missing, right? For quite a bit of time, too. Actually, February 20th into the morning hours of the 21st, until he surfaced again. And the cover story was he was out to dinner, eating some chicken, chipped his tooth on chicken, and had to have emergency surgery at the dentist. And they even did like a press conference with the dentist, or they found some guy who pretended to be a dentist or whatever it was.
Is obviously a cover-up, because why would you not know where the president is if he was just having fucking tooth surgery?
Yeah, exactly. Especially because you have groups like the CIA already formed, the NSA that's already formed, people that have surveillance capabilities at this point in time.
Yeah, there's no way you didn't know where he is.
No, yeah, exactly. So obviously they have to come up with some cover, and it was bullshit. Like, we all know it's bullshit. So what did Eisenhower do on February 20th? Well, February 20th, we don't really know exactly what he did, but there's a gentleman named Gerald Light, which I don't know if that's his real name or not, and he's the one that kind of, I guess, started this whole thing. He's the one that's been writing about this the whole time. So on April 16th of 1954, he wrote these letters to the director of Borderland Sciences Research Associates, and I guess this is the first time it went public that I guess we had contact with aliens. So Gerald Light, among other people too, there were a lot of people there, but Gerald Light is kind of the one that was the most public about it. So the Gerald Light, Franklin Allen, Edwin Norris, and Bishop McIntyre, they're all invited to this delegation. And what they were kind of these high-ranking, professors. Some of them were like scientists, and they all invited these guys to kind of meet with like a group of government agencies to kind of gauge their perception of should we go public with the whole alien race treaty thing or not. And obviously they had to probably write some NDAs and have to be secretive, and their life is probably on the line. So that's why I wonder if Gerald Light is actually his real name, or if this is actually a real, like, if he was actually there, or if it's the accounts of somebody that told him that wanted to make it go public. But so his scene at this meeting that happened was there were like people talking, government agencies talking about what happened at the treaty, and kind of a little bit more on that. He actually mentioned there were like 5 distinct types of aliens, and that they did land in Roswell, not land in Roswell, but they landed on Earth and had contact with the U.S. government prior hand. And a lot of the stuff that comes from Gerald Light is actually published online. You can actually see it. I'll post links in the show notes, but you can actually see how it all breaks down of what his accounts of the meeting were. So we got dogs going a little crazy. But what's cool about what Gerald Light wrote about is not necessarily vindicated in his time. It's not until William Cooper, where I believe this is like in 1970 or 71 or something like that, somewhere around there. He's an officer of the military. I think it's Air Force, and he had access to top secret documents, or I guess files that were where his rank could only see or above, right? And he said that this is where that 1953 kind of astronomical event happened, where there was a mechanical device outside of space
sending us a signal.
I guess was it in Earth's orbit? I don't know if that was actually no, it was moving towards Earth. I don't think it actually entered Earth's orbit.
No,
they thought it was an
solar
asteroid, but it ended up becoming like a mechanical device, spaceship, or I don't know what they classified it as or what it really was. But they actually did kind of track it, and it was written in the military documents. And William Cooper saw this, and later on essentially told the public this as well, which kind of sort of vindicates what happened with general light. So the other thing that he got from that was the message behind what the aliens were talking about. And this is where it starts getting a little crazy. So what the ETs or the extraterrestrials, the aliens, whoever they were, one of the 5 races is kind of unclear, but both stories go back to the big-nosed grays. They pretty much have the storyline of, hey, you're on a path of killing yourself. The nuclear weapons that you've created has the ability to completely destroy your race. They also mentioned, stop polluting the earth and stop mining the earth for natural resources, and to have us live in harmony with the earth as opposed to using it as just a resource itself. Because essentially we were at an imminent path for destruction.
Which seems pretty spot on.
And it's a lot of cool things like this too, because it's like previous shows we talked about like Anunnaki and these other beings of how like the Lemurians, and we've always talked about there's these other visitors or other beings that have always kind of guided us and kind of ushered us into a certain path, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting
They're good
to
guys,
see,
essentially.
right? And this is almost like the Lemurians and all that is kind of like an ancient telling of it, and this is almost a modern day telling of similar stories, right?
Yeah. Oh man. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. I'm getting anxious. We gotta. God. There's so much that's just like, how do you not think this is real? It just makes so much more sense than everything else. Like,
it's what I loved about X-Files was is the poster that was always up there. It says, "I want to believe."
Yeah.
It's like you want to, but nobody wants you to believe. Like, you just have to kind of take it for yourself and look at the evidence, look at everything that's out there, and
keep it to
decide for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Make your own decision. So after all this, there was actually a second meeting with the aliens. This time there were a lot more people invited, and I guess we will go into more detail because a lot of these people actually kind of came to like really come out in public and really started kind of
like
pushing.
Whistleblowers,
yes, like really started pushing the agenda, and oddly enough, they actually ended up all getting killed. I think at one point, but
every one of them.
yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. So out of the second meeting, we ended up getting a little bit more out of the treaty, because the first treaty was more or less the humans were a little bit more stubborn because we wanted to kind of have technology trade. So we wanted to allow them to essentially abduct humans in trade for their technology, but they refused to give us their technology. Probably for good reason, right?
Yeah.
Because if we had the technology, we would just kill it.
That was one of the races. Yeah.
So after that failure, that was the big nose Greys. After that failure, we actually came in contact with another one, which I believe it's the hybrid race, right? What were they called? The Anasarians or whatever.
Yeah,
some weird name or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later, that's for sure. But we actually made contact with them, found out they were from the constellation of Orion, in a star system called Betelgeuse. And they stated that their planet was dying, and they were looking for places to move, right? To essentially move their race.
Yeah.
And obviously, when they saw probably us blowing up nuclear bombs, they said, "Hey, there's shit going on over here. Let's take a look." And I'm wondering if they actually did that to themselves. So if they're planet was dying? Did they overmine it? Did they?
Well, that would make sense why they gave us that information, like,
to try to warn us,
planet.
right?
Yeah.
So part of the treaty was that they wouldn't interfere in our affairs and we wouldn't interfere in theirs, right? Fair enough.
Do you want to touch upon what those affairs entail?
Yeah. You want to go ahead?
I mean, yeah. So we don't interfere in the extraterrestrials' affairs.
Yeah, meaning outside of this planet, or even with like.
Well, no, even on the planet.
On the planet, yeah, because if there's 5 races that are out there, we can't.
Well, not even, but like the part of the treaty was that they are allowed to abduct, do their tests on people.
Yes, and
that
we're not allowed. Yeah. Well, we put.
We
did put some
guidelines.
Yeah. This.
We
Well,
said okay, you're okay. Like they're only supposed to abduct like X amount of people a year, and there's also supposed to be a detailed list of the people that are being abducted.
Yeah, and there was some of the guidelines were like we would keep their existence a secret to the public.
Exactly. Yeah.
That they wouldn't make another treaty with another Earth nation.
Yep.
So like they couldn't go to like our enemy at
Russia
the time would be like
or whatever,
Russia, and do the same. Like you said, they could abduct people, but we put in the guidelines of only a few hundred a year.
And we need to know.
And we need to know exactly who it was, because obviously we would want to know probably too what happened to them or what they did and the outcome of what they did. And then obviously the kind of trade of technology.
Yeah, that was what we got out of it.
Yeah, in a sense, like obviously they didn't give us everything they had, and I don't know, could they actually learn from us? I don't know. They might have.
I don't think in the technological way is what they were looking for. I think they needed to learn something from us, which is why they were experimenting
maybe
on
on
people
planet,
and abducting people. But no, we were just out for the technology and the power, essentially.
Yeah.
But Schneider.
Oh, we'll get to Schneider.
Okay.
We'll get to Schneider.
Okay.
I just want to put this one in here. So
No. Please do.
Because like everything we've talked about are people that nobody knows about, or question who are these people and why were they invited, or were they actually there, or are they just making this stuff up. Schneider was one of them, right? We'll get to Schneider in a second, but Douglas MacArthur, right? Everyone knows who he is, famous general, obviously respected around the United States, around the world, right?
Hard not to respect a guy with a friggin' pipe like that. Look at that.
the corn cob?
Dude's a badass. Look at him.
This guy is one of those old hard asses that never changed ever in his life. But fuck it was effective and he won wars. But he's actually come out and said that if we were to fight another world war, it wouldn't be with another country on the planet. It would be, well, he put it as planetary, as other forces in planetary galaxies, which makes no sense, but he meant other planets or aliens, ETs, right?
Yes.
So, if a general, a famous general coming off of World War II, is saying stuff about how we would potentially be fighting other races, did he know more? And was just kind of saying, hey, people pay attention, like shit's gonna happen that's way worse. Like World War II was nothing.
Yeah.
And then he always used to use Einstein's quote, and it was, if we were to fight a third world war, it wouldn't be until the fourth conflict that we fight with sticks and stones, meaning we would just completely wipe ourselves out, or somebody would come around and destroy us.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time, because from the Roswell incident leading up to kind of, I guess, this whole treaty and things like that, I guess there was a definitive time where there is once we kind of detonated that nuclear bomb, that was the next evolution of humans. Like, we were now going to become the next, the newest kid on the block in the intergalactic city.
Neighborhood.
So, just to give a little bit more of an indication of what we've been talking about so far before we start getting really down the rabbit hole, the 2014 FBI released documents to high-ranked public You can go right on FBI.gov. This is a .gov website. This is not something that I found from some, backwoods website and they found it from somewhere. This is a .gov. I screenshot that document right there, and you can see the bullet points that are going down there. I just kind of put them here so you can read them. And this is just this is I think like a 50, 60 page document or whatever. There's one page from the document, and they actually discussed about, like the discs, like meaning flying saucers, carry crews, and others are under remote control, or meaning kind of like drone-like. It says the mission was peaceful. Visitors contemplated settling on the planet, kind of like what you said, where they were trying to gather information on the planet itself, and we're not to meddle with what they were doing. The visitors are human-like, but much larger in size, which is interesting because, do they look like us with a different skin? Could they actually change? Is there something that they could, could they function in the world like that? When we would not even know.
Well, beyond that, we've done episodes.
Yeah, you're pretty fucking tall.
That would
Are you an alien?
I just looked at the mic, but I wanted to look at the camera. I am an adult. But we've done episodes that have the depictions on like the tablets or something that have the normal people worshipping the very large beings.
We've brought that tablet up how many fucking times? I think on every episode.
And it's tying into this now. But
it's funny because that's what you were saying, that just popped in your head, like Gilgamesh,
I meant Methuselah.
Yeah, I know, but wasn't Gilgamesh one of those guys? Who
lived like super long? Or
yeah,
whatever?
And he was super huge, right? He was
I believe so.
Like 11 feet tall, and he lived to be like 400 years old or some crap. Right? Could he be one of these people that decided to live here, and then now these people are coming back now that we developed the nuclear arsenal? But some more things about it is the discs possess some type of radiant energy. They don't come from any planet as they use the word, as we would use the word, but from an etheric planet which this is hard, interpenetrates with our own and is not perceivable to us, meaning it's dimensionally different. Yeah, and
which I'm glad was in there, because that's a very specific point to take note of. A lot of these extraterrestrials, or at least some of them, don't exist in the reality, in the dimension that we know. They exist on another dimension.
Yeah,
we can't exist in, or can't right now exist in, but they can travel to and from. That's hard as a human on Earth to wrap your head around.
And you gotta remember, these are documents
coming from the government.
Yeah, exactly. From high-ranking officers, scientists. I don't know exactly who wrote this, but obviously somebody was official enough to get the job and write a document that had to be classified, right?
Yeah.
Well, obviously it had to be classified.
Yeah, and it's declassified now. But come on, people, take advantage before they become classified again.
But what's interesting about this, too, is there are a lot of documents that are missing from the Eisenhower era. Because
I'm sure.
Because of these things. And a lot of because that's I guess the Gerald Light thing is what kind of fills in those gaps. And that's why we have to kind of take him a little serious, but we're not exactly sure. But he sent I think 5 letters, and you can read about them. Just type in Gerald Light letters, and you'll see them online.
Yeah, they actually come up fairly easy.
Yeah,
they did. A couple of them came up when you were telling me about.
Yep. Yeah, and then just some more things that were from this document. It says the bodies of the visitors in the craft also automatically materialize on entering the vibratory rate of our dense matter. So kind of moving within, kind of interdimensionally, meaning they're able to jump onto a different frequency and seemingly pop in and out of our world.
We've talked. I think we've talked about.
We talked about cymatics.
Yeah, cymatics and vibration, and how vibration turns into frequency, and then frequency turns into dimension, and it's all kind of the same thing.
Or even on the last episode, we were talking about the 8th dimensional shape, casting its kind of 3rd dimensional shadow in the crystalline format to develop certain matter.
So, hypothetically, if we are vibrating at, I don't know the right number, let's just say 40 hertz, or whatever the heck the term is, something else that vibrates at a different frequency, but mathematically like sound, if that makes sense, like on a half level or a double level. Like it's something, if it's almost like a frequency that's the opposite.
Yeah. Well.
Well, just bear with me.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
that cancels out those both frequencies. So if you put two things together, it kind of makes a void space where nothing can exist. So if you're an interdimensional being and you vibrate at a different frequency, you could exist within the empty space of matter, so to speak. Wow, I just got really crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like we don't even know what dark matter is.
Exactly.
We know it's there.
So technically, these other beings that vibrate on a different level could exist within you, but just on a different level. Like it's not a physical level.
No, because
it's hard to explain
Right.
and grasp. But
if you're thinking about it like this, where objects within our world, in our third dimensional world, exist because they also exist in a higher dimension, but we can only see the third dimensional part of it.
Right. Exactly. So these other beings are existing on the dimension that we can't perceive.
It's not like they only exist in that dimension. Their actions in whatever dimension might affect our dimension.
Yes.
So
yes.
we're interconnected. Hence why they can also, which is in the document, says they can re-enter the etheric at will and so simply disappear from our vision without a trace. But meaning you would go in and out. Because, like, everyone knows that famous, the model where you take a 2D plane, which would be a sheet of paper. If you fold it in half, you can poke a hole through it. Now you enter a third-dimensional object into the two-dimensional plane, and it can exist in two places at once on the 2D plane. Because if you fold it in half, kind of like space-time can fold in half, theoretically it can be two places at once. And that kind of demonstrates how a third-dimensional object could seemingly appear, disappear. If you were to pull the pencil out, seemingly to a two-dimensional being, it would just disappear at will.
Yeah. Really cool to think about. And again, government documents.
It's there. Like, go read
Look it up. Do your research.
I put the link in the... Well, I'll put it in the show notes as well, so you can just click on it, so we don't have to be lazy and type it in. But at the bottom of this particular slide here in orange, there is a link right there. That's the .gov website. So if whatever you do and you don't believe us about anything, you can or you should be able to believe this because you obviously believe in your own government, which is crazy. So let's get crazy then, right?
Yeah.
Why not? 5 alien races. We talked about it before. It's, William Cooper talked about how there were 5 in the documents that he saw. I think Gerald Light even mentioned that there were more than one. I don't think he said there were 5, but I think he said there were more than just the one alien race out there. And obviously we would know this because as soon as you get in contact with one, they probably all know each other, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I'm sure.
Galactic Facebook.
If we're aware of them, then they're probably aware of each other.
Right. So, and eventually, one race will make the call and be like, hey, that place over by, here, the sun, whatever. I don't know what they call the sun. Imagine if they actually called our sun the sun. Like, that was the name of our star.
They probably call it, like, Sol or something. That's what the old...
Yeah, that's
people
true. Yeah, you're
who
probably
started-
right, actually. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, like
it's
what?
probably one of the ancient fucking... Well, I don't want to get into the whole Anunnaki
Yeah, we're
thing.
going to get off topic.
Jesus, but...
Alien races.
5 alien races. And this is where we're going to have, like... This is kind of where we were kind of saying... Everything leading up to this kind of threw a little bit of evidence out there. Official testimonies from smart people like scientists and
From smart people.
smart people. No, but even like generals and people that we as a population, we as a society would hold as a high-ranking person, right? These are people that would have, the credibility to say something, and most of the population, if not all the population, would agree, I trust this person or I respect this person enough to say, yes, I agree with you. So with all the things that we put forth, hopefully you are in somewhat belief that there are 5 alien races, and we are going to go through them really quick. And
Or at least one that we have a treaty with.
Yes, with at least one that we do have a treaty with. So I did pull this from the website. I can't remember which one off the top of my head. I did put the notes, the link in the show notes. So click on that and then definitely go through it, read it, because there's a lot more than what's on here. And we're just going to blast through these super quick because I don't want to spend too much time on each specific one. But these are the ones that we think we have the treaty with, right?
Yeah.
What did you see?
This picture just reminds me of... Okay, so real quick, kind of on topic. Netflix documentary... God, the... Shit, I just had his name and now it's blanking. A guy who lived in the Midwest... oh my god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Hold on.
Just launch the Netflix app on the iPod.
Yeah, right? Netflix.
Well, anyway, why are you looking that up?
Because there's a guy who has all of these... It's Stanley Romanek. Bam, that's it. I'm faster than you, Google. Stanley Romanek has all kinds of like abduction histories and all this stuff, and he, at one point, after a couple of his abductions or experiences, he is talking about how he keeps being visited, and by that he means like seeing this being, like little girl with very big and blue eyes, who keeps referring to him as her father.
Kind of like the picture that's here.
But kind of looking like that. And I find that, I don't know, I just immediately made that connection.
Interesting.
When you put that up
I
on
can
the
actually
screen.
see how that would be looks like a girl, right? That looks like a young
And he
female.
describes it as a young girl with very big eyes, but like beautiful eyes. And after he is abducted multiple times and has experiences with these extraterrestrials. Anyway, very interesting. There's also parts of the documentary that are like, okay, you're playing peekaboo with an alien? No, you're not.
What?
But
what?
You'll understand if you watch the documentary. But some
okay.
really cool stuff. That was a direct connection. But moving forward to the Asani, yes, I do think that this is the race that are being referred to as the big-nosed gray aliens, or the one that we have the treaty with for technology.
Right, and they are somewhat peaceful in a sense. Like, yeah, they did kind of violate the treaty where they eventually, I guess, they took too many humans for experiments.
They never give a fuck. Like,
so I don't know if that's resolved. Like, I haven't heard anything else. Maybe we should ask Trump.
no.
So.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them. Great people. Excellent food, I guarantee it.
Oh, shit. Well, that'd be confirmation, right? He would say something stupid like that.
You know he would.
And then you'll get assassinated.
The Yael.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that one. I don't know how to say any of these, to be honest with you.
A.K.A. the Shalanaya.
You're pretty good at that. All right. So these guys are? These guys were just like zigging by. They visited us. I don't think there's anything too much from them, right?
Yeah, I think they're very passive.
Yeah. So I think they just kind of flew by. I don't think we have a treaty with them, but we're obviously not at war with them either.
Described as having very, very blonde hair.
Yes.
Oh wait, no.
Yeah. These are the people.
Yeah, almost like, Aryan looking.
Yeah, and we do get those accounts of certain aliens that were out there like this, but and they're very heart-centered, meaning they obviously have a compassionate way about it. That's why
they're
they
benevolent
left
species.
this alone. Which it almost seems like you almost have to be a benevolent species to be interstellar, right? Because
again, that book by Bob Frizzle, he says the most powerful civilizations in the universe are like the benevolent, heartfelt ones.
Right, because you kind of have to get to a point where you stop killing each other and to live as a singularity, right? The Serene Hybrids.
Yep.
Obviously, they are they're from Sirius, the star system Sirius. These would be kind of like the Anunnaki, right? So these would be
creators of man.
Yeah, the ones that have kind of installed the genetic code with whatever, like, I don't know how you would explain that, but if you go back to our previous the Anunnaki episode. I think it was actually our first episode. Was it the first episode?
I can't remember at this point.
I don't know. I mean, it's been a while, but if you go back through the archive, you'll see the Anunnaki one. Just watch that, and you'll learn more about why they kind of installed us as a human race or as a intelligent race here on this planet. But awesome, interesting stories based on that. I guess these are also the race that is depicted on those tablets, right? That's what we're thinking, because they're the tall ones that are like much larger. They're kind of humanoid-like, which kind of depicts it here. Obviously, these are all renders. These aren't pictures, people.
These are just
these are exact photographs.
Art theory, I guess.
This is the mugshot lineup.
That's actually Billy Bob and Joe.
But these are just what artist renderings or what we think they are. The Palladians, these are also the very benevolent. These are also the ones that thought to be interdimensional.
Yes, and I think these are also the ones that were another ones we came in contact with, and we tried to have a treaty with them, like, yo, give us some stuff and you can do whatever you want. And they were like, nah.
Yeah, they pretty much
y'all
denied
motherfuckers
us.
are crazy. Like,
I wonder if they give us technology to benefit us.
I wonder if they're one of the races that has helped, like, guide man through their evolutional phases, but like in a good way, in a healthy way, if
right.
you will.
Like, hey, it's time to learn farming. Here, this is how you fucking plant seeds, you idiot.
And then you have the Grimace gang.
The Grimace gang? No, they're not scary. They're just...
Man, Grimace from Sesame Street, dude.
What? That's from McDonald's.
Oh shit, it is McDonald's. Well, it shows you how much I care about McDonald's and ate it. The Arcturians, yeah.
These would be the kind of like the master race of all aliens, right? They're the oldest, most knowledgeable, kind of far beyond anyone's or any race's, other alien race's comprehension. They essentially are like the small little like blue-gray aliens. They have like the huge brains, but their bodies are like thin, but they're pretty strong. Pretty much your Hollywood alien, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much what you see in
Is this also the one that exists and can move
dimensionally? Yeah,
dimensionally?
this one
Okay.
too. Yeah. So they are. They can actually take like many forms too. So like different forms of like consciousness. So the thought is like they can allow them to pass through like as a group, essentially pass through dimensionally as well.
And that's the fifth one, isn't it?
That is the fifth. Yeah. So obviously all the sources. I'll post them in the show notes so you can just click on them. You don't have to read them here. But everything I pulled generally was from, a lot of it was from those documents that we talked about, meaning from the 50s and moving on. So, yes, some of the sources that I found them on were a little, obviously, strange, kind of pseudoscience, websites, but they're pulled from the actual documents, and they're discussing the documents. So it's very interesting on
Many levels.
So many levels.
Many levels. Like, look it up, watch some videos. If you don't have the attention span to read giant articles, watch some videos. There's some great videos out there. One on Phil Schneider, actually.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that slide. I did have a slide of Phil.
Yeah, I thought you did too. But that's okay. We can just talk about him. Phil. We're referring to him by his first name now. First name basis. R.I.P. Phil.
There's Phil.
There he is. You got him. Phil Schneider was the chief, if not one of the head geological engineers for the government. And to backtrack a little bit, part of the treaty I want to say that we didn't get to with the alien races that we do have the treaty with, was that we would build underground military bases, some for us and some for the aliens.
Well, we are all the surface military buildings that we have, meaning like Roswell is a big one.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the ones that are like NORAD is another big one. That's obviously one that we know about, that it's underground. A lot of these are interconnected with tunnels, and
oh yeah, Oh yeah, and Phil Schneider
He's
confirms
one
that.
of, yeah, and he's one of the engineers that was
Helping build them, design them, engineer them. And so during this process, to talk about Phil a little bit, he's talking about how he goes down into the structure being made, I guess, like the process of it. I don't even know what that entails, because it's not like you make a foundation and then you build on top. It's a totally different process of building.
Right.
So he's going down there, and he explains how he always thought it was funny that he was just a geologist, but he was given a handgun. He talks about that in one of his videos.
Really? I didn't know about that.
So he's saying, on one of his many trips down, into the Earth's crust, essentially, he gets to the bottom, and he's talking about how when the doors open, there's men, like humans, but there's also a gray alien, or an alien being that he didn't recognize at all, and it immediately scared him to the point that he drew his weapon. He drew that gun and just like started firing. And in his videos, in all his videos, like you can see, he has on one of his hands, I can't remember if it's right or his left, it's just like there's like parts of his fingers and hand like missing, like, but it's such a clean, straight line. And I guess the story is when he fired at this being, it like put out its hand and used some sort of electric current from itself. And Phil Schneider was like, the reason I know it was electric is because after it hit me, all of my fingernails and toenails were like melted, like, and so it hits him in the stomach, like goes, essentially tears through him. He loses parts of his liver. He's saying how he loses parts of a bunch of his organs, but he lives, and goes back up. Who knows what happens after that?
It's because Phil's the man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure is like his verbatim. He's like, I don't know what happened after that. But I lived, and after all that, is when I like decided I need to start telling people about this. Like, there's these beings here that like nobody knows about, and they're extremely powerful and all this stuff. But in one of the videos, the video that I'm referring to, he's talking about how he has had like 11 different attempts on his life. Like, so had been wait, what am I even trying to say? Someone had tried to kill him 11 times and failed, because, I mean, you can see in the picture, he's a relatively big guy. Eventually they succeed. I can't remember what the date was when they finally pull it off, and he died. He gets killed.
Well, not only that, too, he's a lot of his friends, his close friends, noted that he also talked about like how he's always in trouble, and the fact that he can at any moment be assassinated. Because he always said that. He's like, because of who I am and what I'm saying, my life is always in danger. And I think the person that actually found him, or thought that he might have been dead, was one of his friends that would check on him, like periodically, just be like, hey, what's up, just checking in on you. And he would go over to like his apartment and shit like that. And he went over like 5 days in a row, whatever, and his car was always parked in the driveway, knocked on the door, and I guess he went to the manager, they opened the door, and I guess he was just lying dead on his floor.
Yeah, so
a lot of people think that it was, I think the official ruling was suicide, but
of course.
Right, yeah.
But when you've had 11 attempts on your life before that, and all of a sudden you commit suicide. I mean, it's totally possible. Maybe the pressure just got too much, and he was just like, I can't fucking live like this anymore, and just offed himself. Totally possible. But, I mean, it seemed like... Sorry, I just hit the mic. It seemed like he was on a pretty straightforward mission to try to, like, let the world know what the hell's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, and his accounts are the biggest, right? I would say they're
some of the biggest, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by far, in a way, the most detailed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because it's almost as if like it's if it's fake, it is very convincing that he goes into such detail about, because to me it feels like he's recalling from his memory.
Yeah, and he can he articulates himself well. Like when you watch the videos, like you can tell he's a smart guy. But the thing about smart people is a lot of people find smart people weird, because there's some of them are so smart that they don't
understand.
Yeah. Their mannerisms or their body language or whatever are weird. So a lot of people like watch these videos and are like, I mean, even in the video, like he's lecturing all these people in this big room, and he's like, I can see some of you don't want to take this seriously, and I respect that decision, because like people are getting up and like leaving, and it's not like a ton of people, but there's like probably like 4 people. But yeah, why? I always when I like come across these people, find myself going, especially when it's a high-ranking person or a person like Phil, that's like, why would they lie about this? What do they gain out of lying about it? Like, what would the motive be?
Yeah, I don't know.
There is no motive. Come on, people. The ability to detect lies. Come on, we're all humans. Like,
it's true.
Why would he lie?
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe to get famous. I don't know.
and
then get killed.
Tried to get killed a bunch of times.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
Wants.
Because I was about to say, like, oh yeah, just to get famous, and I was thinking about, well, it's gonna get you
not
killed.
the kind of fame you want.
Yeah. And I don't know how we glossed over. Maybe I just accidentally double clicked instead of single click, but yeah, that was like the most important slide. And we just, I don't know. Maybe that's a good point to end on, I guess.
Yeah, and
right, because he was like the things,
he was
like
a huge whistleblower.
Yes,
huge whistleblower,
and he died abruptly.
Yep, and he was in relatively good health. And again, like, he has the claims of being attacked by one of those aliens, and if you look at the scars, I mean, I've never looked up pictures of, like, his belly scars or anything, but I'm sure they exist somewhere.
Let's try it out.
But, yeah, when you look at the scars on his hand, like, what the things that are missing, it literally looks like if his hand was made of butter and a hot knife was just like, and cut it off. Oh, wow. Yep. One of those.
There's no great photo.
Yeah, that's
potentially that one.
Poor resolution, but
yeah, it's sort of.
So that would be when he was like trying to cover himself or whatever. But. I mean, you would think that we all know that deep underground military bases exist. I just hit the camera, dude. I'm killing it. We all know that those exist. Like, that's no secret. We all have friends that are in the military that can 90% confirm. Oh yeah, there's underground military bases. So it's not far-fetched to think that there's maybe lower levels of these military bases that maybe these aliens exist within. Or that's where, councils are had, or whatever.
It just seems so like a...
Not dark councils.
Yeah, like an evil
I knew
empire,
that's where you were going as soon as you started laughing. Well, I'm sure that, even a lot of the people in these deep underground military bases aren't allowed to know about extraterrestrial existence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this should be, the highest level...
Yeah, you would imagine that these underground military bases are big. There's probably a lot of people in them.
Huge. And for every surface one, there's probably one underneath it.
Yeah, likely.
Right?
Maybe not every one, but a lot. Yeah. And there's a speculation that there's a lot of military bases within mountains in the United States, within a lot of the mountain ranges.
Yeah, well, NORAD is one.
Yeah.
It's built into the side of the mountain.
Built in, yeah. And if you can get into the side of the mountain, why couldn't you get into the core beneath the mountain?
It's true. Well, the mountain's a little bit more stable. It's just big old rock.
Where do you think the idea of the fucking Bat Cave came from? Come on.
I think Batman predates all this, actually.
Yeah. Batman's more badass than all of them.
Fucking Batman. Yeah, so I don't even know, like...
Guys, do your research. Like, get into this.
It's I don't know. It's weird to think about just because of the amount of detail that's out there. But all the details are built upon itself. So it's...
All this shit is related.
Yeah.
Literally every podcast can be linked to another podcast that we've done somehow. Unless we really go off the deep end and start doing weird stuff. Because this isn't weird. This is normal.
Which we probably will at one point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what we discussed in the past. Like, I don't know. Eventually I think we were going to take another direction. And
yeah, eventually we'll start talking about, like, consciousness and we'll just be yogis.
We would just sit here silent and talk to you directly.
But things to think of, and points of this episode, in my opinion, technology, how it's boomed, how we did go from, like, barely being able to fly across the ocean to 20 years later flying to the moon, and how all these alien Roswell, Germany's Roswell stuff happened in between those two dates. Like, the booming of technology now, like SpaceX just launched that rocket or the satellite out of California, a couple days ago now? 2 days ago?
Yeah.
And, like, my friends who live out there, like, were sending pictures like, whoa, this is crazy. And then, there's the time lapse that somebody took a picture of it actually going through and, like, all the way. And, one of my friends had a pretty good rebuttal to this, and I'll tell you the rebuttal first. He said, oh, that's all like a show anyway. He's like, every time, they launch one of those rockets, it's like an advertisement. Like, oh, look what SpaceX is doing. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's a very good point. But at the same time, I was like, all the rockets that we've seen launch in a certain way, and you, like, just once they breach the atmosphere, they don't create that like explosion thing that, like, looks like it ripples throughout the atmosphere, like the literal, like, ozone. And so, yeah, that could just be a show to be like, hey, everybody, look, like, SpaceX is doing something again, like, fund us, like, donate to us, whatever. But that could also just be new technology being used that we know nothing about. Like,
yeah, I always had the assumption there was, like, some satellite that they're putting up there, like, because it would be really easy for, if there was a private company out there that was willing to do space travel, and you can, let's say, like, I funded something, I want to load up a rocket and put up a satellite, it'd be pretty easy at that point for the government to be like, hey, I'll give you, $10 million, insert this piece of software within your satellite, and give us access to your satellite, right?
oh, yeah.
And then now the government has, access to multiple satellites and things like that. Like, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to say, yeah, there's probably more going on to SpaceX than what we actually know. There always is.
Yeah,
there always is.
Exactly. And it could just be a show, because that's smart. That would be very smart to just be like, hey, when it gets to this altitude, let's make this thing go off that looks really cool in the sky, because at that level in the atmosphere, it will look cool, whereas down here it wouldn't look like anything. You know what I mean? Because of the way the lights hits it, blah, blah, blah. But it could also just be like a crazier form of technology as far as space travel goes that, like, is being played off as just a show. And,
just as the rocket.
It's awesome technology, because, like, it looks so much different than, and even in, like, 90, like, the most recent, like, big deal one that everyone knew about, it was, like, only a decade or two ago, and that was still on the shuttle, like on a shuttle that breaks off, and it's like, the technology is just boomed, people, like, just boomed. And I mean, it took us so long in our history to get to a certain point, and as soon as we got to a certain point, it was just like,
well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because Schneider actually said that we signed treaties. He said there was a 1944, a 54, a 62, and a 79. What's interesting about some of those years is, 54 and 62, obviously 54 to be the one that was in for Eisenhower. 62 was probably technology exchange, right? Boom, go to the moon. We got space travel. And then 79 was probably because there was kind of a dead zone of our compute from like the 50s to the 70s, and it wasn't around. I think it was around like 77, 70, whatever. It was the late 70s is when we really started developing chips and how our computers are now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our next technological boom.
Nanotechnology.
Is computers. Yeah, we're shrinking it down. Like obviously.
Well, that's when it like started, wasn't it? Like around that time.
Yeah.
Where do you think that shit came from?
All right, that's
Again,
what I'm wondering.
That's why I brought this up. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's like it kind of matches up a little bit.
The history of technology in the past like 70 to 100 years, and really think about the possibility of technology being given to us. Like, we rolled, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, so slowly down the technological path for so long. And then it's like, all of a sudden we hit this ramp and now we're fucking going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and like technology is just skyrocketing, booming. Like, we're building robots. Like we're talking about the possibility of having things that are moving underground going like Mach 10, and all this just crazy stuff. Anti-gravity, like.
Well, I think that's like the next frontier would be something in the form of a non-fuel propulsion engine, like meaning something that works on like a frequency or like a sound frequency.
Yeah.
Or like a type of vibration, something like that, or some type of a magnetic
the void
field.
Space in front of you again that you can move through. That basically moves you, I guess. Like, we were talking about this a little, I think, off camera one day, but that's a whole other podcast.
What, the future technologies and stuff?
No, yeah, but like space travel and how like canceling out the frequency of, the space in front of you or in an area like becomes totally void, and I'm like more than just like empty space void. Like it's something quantum that you can't like really comprehend. That I don't know. I was either reading about it or I was talking to you about it, that would allow essentially you to move through that space totally differently than you would if that space wasn't being voided because of the frequency canceling or something. You know what I mean? Almost like the theory of how they like use frequency to move the huge stones, but like on a much grander like technological scale.
Right.
Anyway.
But even something like, I think it was the Palladians, whatever. There was an account of actually I think it was Eisenhower was on a nuclear aircraft carrier, and off the side of the boat they said it was like a bluish kind of greenish orb kind of floated next to the boat, and it like kind of stayed next to the boat for like a couple seconds, and then it just shot straight up and like out of like the orbit essentially, and then Eisenhower pretty much just said, "Mind your business," and then everyone just forgot about it.
Yeah, who was also ex-military and
right.
Yeah.
So like there's things out there like that. Like you could read stories all about that, and most of it comes down to, figuring out how to split the atom and make bombs and destroy ourselves. Right? We've opened up. We ring that doorbell when we fucking drop that bomb. I think it started everything.
I think that was the spark of attention.
Yep. He said shit.
And again, I think that
Earth's ready.
I think extraterrestrials have been watching for a very, 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 very long time.
Oh yeah, we're not.
But I think that's what really made them be like, okay, it's time to
intervene.
Yeah.
Like let's get something here. And like what we said before is maybe these crashes aren't crashes. They got shot down.
Yeah. Or maybe they crashed on purpose. Like.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, just throw a fucking
Yeah, we
Put
didn't
them
mean to
above.
do this.
Yeah.
We haven't been checking you guys out for millions of years, you know, like...
Like, oops, here's some technology.
We happened to crash. You're stupid, so you're gonna believe that. Like, all right, guys. What else we got? We kind of been wrapping it up for like 15
Yeah, I
minutes.
know, right? I don't know why, but...
Well, we forgot about Phil.
Yeah, poor Phil.
First.
Fuck it, eh? We're gonna pour one out for Phil.
And then we got into, thinking about the timeline of technology and the possibility of these treaties.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, is when we're doing our research, is really hard to find any of this stuff current. Like, where are we right now? Without Phil, we have nothing.
Well, I think it's. I think as we've entered the information age, like at first, it was like cool. We have access to all of this information, but slowly the grip on that information, even digitally and on the internet, is like tightening.
Oh, it's tightening for sure.
So like things are getting taken down sooner, or like things are being censored more, and certain websites you need certain access to. You know what I mean? Like,
I bet you there's something somewhere out there. Somebody archived WikiLeaks, and there's got to be something in there.
well, if anybody can find it, it's the Seeker.
Oh shit! Yeah, right. Maybe I'll look into that, but.
Hey man, they don't call you the Seeker for nothing.
Yep. Man, I don't know. It's interesting to just think about what could be next. Like, obviously, it seems like we're heading to Mars, right? That seems like the next logical step in anything interplanetary.
But we're getting into another topic though, because like
Maybe this is the next show.
The next step for us is the masses. You know what I mean? But the next step for the ones running everything is probably very different. Like, we're not all going to be a part of the next step every time. No way. There's no way if the Earth dies and we're colonizing Mars that everyone is going. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
No.
no way. So for us to sit here and say, what's the next step? Like, we might not be a part of the next step. The next step might have already happened. And, it's just the...
That's so sad to think.
It's
It's
extremely
like,
sad to think, but it's totally plausible. Again, control. It's all about control. If you're controlling the people, you're still making money off them. A lot of these
that's kind of
treaty
like
things that we were talking about.
Interstellar was kind of like a little bit like that, where they had the rocket or the ship that they built, and they knew they could only take a handful of people, and they knew, yes, everyone else is going to die.
And yes, everyone else is going to fuel this project with their taxes or whatever. Like,
Right.
Why is it so far-fetched to think that we're not already on Mars? Why is it so far-fetched to think that we don't already have, like, space stations that we inhabit?
I think we do.
I think we do too, man, and I know that's a very, like,
Conspiracy
brash, brash opinion, but, like, brash probably isn't the word, but I just wanted to say it. Brash. It's fun to say.
There's been reports, like, there's a lot of been, like, military accounts of they say, like, we've been in Mars since, like, the 70s.
Yeah. There's been ex-military people, not just from the U.S. military, but from, like, Russian military and other militaries that have come forward to be like, I lived on Mars for 17 years or something like that. Something crazy. And... again, you got to ask yourself, why the hell would they just make that up?
For fame, I have no fucking clue either.
Yes, but
to be cool.
I really think, and another thing Phil mentions is the rate of increasing technology for the military installation.
Oh, far advanced.
Exactly, as opposed to the populations, like. And it's 45 or something years for every 1 year that we advance. Every year. So, like, we're advancing 1 year, and we're... So, in the first year, let's say, so to speak, like, we're 44 years behind them. Then the next year, we're, like, 89 or, like, 88 years behind them or something. Because, like, we're only in year 2 now, and they're in year 50 or 90 or whatever. Like, it's...
it's like
that's what's been happening.
It's like Moore's law.
Yeah, it's just been going and going and going. So the probability of them being in space already or having a colony here, fuck, dude. I'll be the one to say it. I wouldn't even doubt that there's like a colony on like a moon in like Saturn or something, like Titan or whatever. Like,
oh yeah.
Why couldn't there be? Like with again, there's so much. Some of these military officials come out,
and that's under the assumption that the technology is there to begin with, because under the technology that we know of right now, like how long did Juno take? 10 years?
A long time.
It was a while, right? It was years, measured in years, right? So obviously, if you would have sent a person out there, you would have to have life support for 10 years. That's a lot.
Right, but if you have technologies that are
either travel
able
faster,
to support life
hibernation
for 10 years without that person being active, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Then that's not a technology you're going to share with the public, because that would be immensely useful for, you know, in the pharmaceutical / like, you know, that industry, like,
well,
for
really
people,
anything,
like the medical industry.
Yeah.
Why did it take me so long to figure out that word? Like, extremely useful.
And eventually, I think we would catch up. Like it's hard to imagine that every, like you said, it's 1 to 45 for technology purposes, because my little pea brain can't imagine what the hell even 100 years of technology, at the rate we're going, 100 years would even look like.
Yeah.
Like, in my pea brain, I go back to the previous episode we just did of simulation theories. You know, I'm at Best Buy, I just put a fucking VR headset in, and I'm, you know, testing it out. And I just lived, you know, 33 years of my life, and on my 34th birthday, I'm going to take it off and be like, oh shit, I was just in Best Buy the whole time testing it out. I was going to buy the VR for my 34th birthday in the first place.
That's weird to think about.
Yeah, that is a weird way to think about it. But yeah, I don't know.
I see your point. It's interesting and it's true, but it's still weird.
Or is VR just a way to distract us?
Well, that's another thing we gotta remember, is that like so much of our technology is distracting.
Right.
You know, better speakers, better TVs, better video games. Like,
and they're awesome.
Yeah, better graphics for video games. Yeah, and they are awesome, and they're addicting too.
Hell yeah. YouTube. Fucking YouTube. What are you doing watching this video right now? We're already an hour and 31 minutes. If you're still watching this, then thank you.
Yeah, definitely thank you. We were ranting for a while.
But I don't know. Let's just fucking
guys,
end it.
Do some research. Nothing is impossible. It's, who knows what they got out there, and we don't.
Like Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible.
We're using PowerPoint for our presentations. And they're flying to space. Bye.